Go ahead, Nathaniel, read it. In a few weeks, half of everything you spent your entire life building will be mine.
The divorce papers landed on the polished mahogany conference table with a sharp slap that echoed through the silent room. Every conversation stopped. Every pair of eyes turned toward the man standing near the floor-to-ceiling windows. Nathaniel Brooks didn't flinch. He simply adjusted the cuff of his navy blue suit, picked up the thick envelope, and calmly looked at the woman sitting across from him, his wife, or at least the woman who still legally carried his last name. Vanessa Brooks leaned back in her chair with the confidence of someone who believed she'd already won. Her expensive white pantsuit looked immaculate. Diamond earrings shimmered beneath the conference room lights. The faint smile on her lips wasn't one of sadness. It was victory. Her attorney leaned toward her and whispered something that made her smile even wider. Nathaniel noticed. He noticed everything these days, especially the little things people thought he missed. Outside the towering glass windows, luxury cars lined the private parking lot of Brooks Holdings. Inside, 4 attorneys, 2 financial consultants, and a retired judge serving as mediator, prepared to oversee what everyone believed would become one of the most expensive divorces in Atlanta. Vanessa folded her arms. "I told you this day would come." Nathaniel simply nodded. "I remember. You thought you were smarter than everyone else." He looked down at the papers. Maybe. She laughed. "By the time we're done, I'll own half of everything." The room remained painfully quiet. No one noticed the smallest smile tugging at the corner of Nathaniel's mouth. Not yet. Because everyone in that room believed they already knew the ending. They couldn't have been more wrong. But before we discover why, Vanessa's confidence would disappear before the day was over. "Tell me something. Where are you watching Uncle James Taylor's from today? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing how these stories bring people together from around the world. And if you enjoy emotional dramas filled with betrayal, shocking twists, family secrets, and unforgettable endings, consider subscribing so you never miss the next story. No? Let's go back 6 months, because no marriage falls apart overnight. Sometimes it dies quietly, one unnoticed lie at a time. Nathaniel Brooks built his empire the old-fashioned way, not through inheritance, not through luck, through 18-hour workdays. He grew up in a modest neighborhood on Atlanta's west side, raised by his grandmother after losing both parents before finishing high school. His grandmother, Evelyn Brooks, had only one rule. Money should never change your heart, Nate. If it does, you never really owned it. Those words stayed with him. At 28, he launched Brooks Urban Development, renovating abandoned apartment complexes into affordable luxury housing. People laughed. Banks rejected him. Friends disappeared. He mortgaged everything. 5 years later, investors came looking for him. At 43, Nathaniel had built a company valued at nearly $500 million. Yet despite the wealth, he remained surprisingly grounded. He still drove himself to work most mornings, still visited his grandmother's church, still quietly paid college tuition for dozens of neighborhood students without putting his name on scholarships. Employees loved him. Competitors respected him. His greatest weakness wasn't business. It was loyalty. Nathaniel believed that if you loved someone enough, they would eventually love you the same way. That belief changed the day he met Vanessa. Vanessa Carter was impossible to ignore. She possessed effortless elegance. She walked into rooms as though she'd already been invited. When they met during a charity gala, Nathaniel found himself laughing harder than he had in years. She challenged him, teased him, refused to treat him like the city's newest millionaire. Or at least, that's what he believed. 3 years later, they married beneath a canopy of white roses overlooking Lake Lanier. Nathaniel remembered crying during his vows. Vanessa cried too. Looking back, he wondered which tears had been genuine. The first year of marriage felt almost perfect. Weekend trips, late-night conversations, cooking breakfast together on Sundays. She supported his business. He encouraged her dream of opening an interior design company. When she struggled finding investors, Nathaniel quietly invested $2 million himself. He never mentioned it again. Whenever friends asked how she launched so quickly, Vanessa proudly answered, "I built it myself." Nathaniel never corrected her. Love wasn't about keeping score. At least, that's what he kept telling himself. Small changes rarely announce themselves. They whisper. Vanessa started staying out later. Networking events, design expos, investor dinners. She became strangely protective of her phone. When messages arrived, she'd flip the screen over. Nathaniel noticed. He simply chose trust, until trust started feeling lonely. One evening, he arrived home earlier than expected after a client canceled dinner. The house felt unusually quiet. Their chef had already left. Music drifted softly upstairs. Nathaniel smiled. Maybe Vanessa was relaxing. He walked toward their bedroom. Halfway down the hallway, he heard laughter. Male laughter, followed immediately by Vanessa's voice. Soft, playful, intimate. Nathaniel froze. His heartbeat slowed instead of racing. He quietly approached the slightly open door. Inside, Vanessa sat on the bed wearing silk pajamas, speaking through wireless earbuds. He couldn't hear the man clearly, only fragments. I miss you too. Pause. No, he has no idea. Another pause. She laughed. I told you. It's predictable. Nathaniel stepped backward before she saw him. His stomach twisted. Maybe she was talking to a client. Maybe she was joking. Maybe. The human mind becomes remarkably creative when protecting the heart. He quietly walked downstairs, intentionally making noise in the kitchen. Seconds later, Vanessa appeared, smiling. You're home. She kissed him naturally. Too naturally. Who were you talking to? He asked. My cousin Monica, without hesitation, without blinking. Nathaniel smiled. Tell her I said hello. That night, he barely slept. The next morning, Nathaniel's longtime executive assistant, Denise Harper, noticed something different. You okay? I'm fine. You've been saying fine for 20 years. He chuckled. I guess I'm tired. Denise studied him. You know something my grandmother used to say? Nathaniel laughed. Everyone's grandmother was wiser than economists. She smiled. Peace leaves before trouble arrives. Nathaniel looked out the window. Those words stayed with him all day. 3 weeks later came another moment he couldn't explain. Vanessa hosted brunch with several friends. Nathaniel wasn't expected home until evening. A construction inspection finished early. He decided to surprise her. Instead, he surprised himself. As he entered through the garage, voices floated from the dining room. One woman laughed. Girl, once those divorce papers are signed, you'll never have to work another day. Another replied. Half of Brooks' holdings? Vanessa corrected her. Not half. The room erupted with laughter. I'm aiming for a lot more than half. Nathaniel stood perfectly still. Someone noticed him. Conversation stopped instantly. Vanessa looked up. For the briefest second, pure panic crossed her face. Then it vanished. Nate, she stood. You scared us. He smiled politely. Sorry. The rest of brunch became painfully awkward. Driving back to the office later, one sentence replayed endlessly. I'm aiming for a lot more than half. Nathaniel wanted answers, not assumptions. Facts. So he hired someone he'd hoped never to need. Private investigator Marcus Hill. Former FBI. Quiet. Methodical. No unnecessary drama. Marcus listened carefully. You want proof? Nathaniel sighed. No. Marcus looked confused. I want the truth. There is a difference. Nathaniel nodded. The truth may hurt. Marcus stood. It usually does. Days became weeks. Marcus rarely called. Nathaniel almost convinced himself he'd imagined everything, until one rainy Thursday afternoon. Marcus arrived carrying a slim black folder. He placed it on Nathaniel's desk. I wish this file were empty. Nathaniel didn't move. Marcus continued. I followed your wife for 31 days. Silence. There wasn't just one man. Nathaniel slowly looked up. What? Marcus opened the folder. Photographs. Restaurants. Hotels. Private clubs. Airport lounges. Different dates. Different men. Nathaniel felt something inside him go strangely numb. Marcus wasn't finished. I believe only one relationship is romantic. Nathaniel swallowed. The others? Lawyers. Nathaniel frowned. Divorce attorneys. He blinked. They've been meeting privately for months. Marcus slid another document across the desk. They've also been consulting forensic accountants. Nathaniel stared. Why? Why would Vanessa secretly hire forensic accountants before even mentioning divorce? Marcus answered the question Nathaniel hadn't asked aloud. They're trying to locate every asset you own. The room became painfully quiet. Nathaniel whispered. So, this has been planned. Marcus nodded slowly. For quite some time. Most people think heartbreak feels explosive. It doesn't. Sometimes. It feels cold. Nathaniel drove aimlessly through Atlanta for nearly 3 hours. No music. No phone calls. Just silence. Finally, He parked outside the small brick house where his grandmother still lived. Evelyn opened the door before he knocked. "Mama." She immediately knew. What happened? Nathaniel sat at her kitchen table, exactly where he'd done homework decades earlier. He told her everything. Not dramatically. Simply. When he finished, Evelyn poured another cup of tea. She didn't speak immediately. Finally, she asked, "Do you still love her?" Nathaniel closed his eyes. "I don't know." "No." He looked confused. Long silence. "I love the woman I thought she was." Evelyn nodded sadly. "Those are not always the same woman." That evening, Nathaniel made the hardest decision of his life. He wouldn't confront Vanessa, not yet, because confrontation without knowledge only warns the guilty. Instead, he called the one attorney he'd trusted for over 15 years, Samuel Richardson. Estate law, corporate law, quiet brilliance. Nathaniel handed him Marcus's file. Samuel read every page without interruption. When he finished, he slowly removed his glasses. "When did she first mention divorce?" "She hasn't." Samuel leaned back. "That's the interesting part." Nathaniel frowned. Samuel tapped one photograph. "She hasn't filed." "No." "Because she's still hunting." "Hunting? For assets." Nathaniel remained silent. Samuel continued. "She wants to know exactly what she's entitled to before she leaves." Nathaniel's expression hardened. "What do I do?" Samuel looked him directly in the eyes. "For the first time in your life, stop assuming everyone plays by your rules." The following months became a silent chess match. Vanessa believed she was gathering information unnoticed. Nathaniel quietly watched. She photographed documents while pretending to organize his office. She questioned accountants during company events. She casually asked about investment properties over dinner. She even began insisting they combine more accounts to simplify taxes. Nathaniel smiled, agreed to harmless requests, refused the dangerous ones without creating suspicion. Meanwhile, Samuel assembled a team unlike anything Nathaniel had imagined. Estate specialists, asset protection attorneys, tax experts, corporate trustees, everything completely legal, everything carefully documented. Nathaniel signed hundreds of pages he barely understood. He asked only one question. "Am I hiding anything illegally?" Samuel answered immediately. "No. I'm protecting what already belongs somewhere else." Nathaniel accepted that answer, because for the first time, he realized protecting himself wasn't revenge. Sometimes, it was survival. Then came the night everything changed. Nathaniel returned home carrying flowers, not because the marriage was improving, because he wanted one last chance, one honest conversation. He found Vanessa on the back patio sipping wine. She smiled warmly. "You remembered my favorite roses." He sat beside her. "I think we should talk." Her smile faded almost imperceptibly. "About what?" "U.S." She looked away. For nearly 5 minutes they discussed counseling, communication, time together. Starting over, Nathaniel meant every word. Vanessa listened carefully. Then she reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I've actually been thinking the same thing." Hope flickered inside him, until her phone vibrated. She glanced down, locked the screen instantly, but not before Nathaniel caught 3 words glowing across it. "Everything is ready." She excused herself. "I need to take this." Nathaniel remained seated alone beneath the patio lights. Minutes later, she returned smiling, as if nothing had happened, as if his heart hadn't just broken for the final time. The very next morning, while Nathaniel was in a board meeting, his receptionist interrupted. "Sir." She looked nervous. "There's a courier here." Nathaniel signed the electronic tablet, opened the envelope. His entire executive team watched his expression change. Inside were divorce papers, and attached to them, a demand seeking half of everything he had spent a lifetime building. Nathaniel slowly closed the folder. Then, for the first time in months, he smiled, not because he wanted the marriage to end, but because Vanessa had finally made her move, and she had absolutely no idea. She was already several moves behind. Nathaniel didn't rush to call his attorney. He didn't slam his fist against the conference table. He didn't even call Vanessa. Instead, he quietly folded the divorce papers, placed them inside his leather portfolio, and looked around the boardroom. His executives waited for an explosion. Instead, they witnessed something far more unsettling. "Come," Nathaniel smiled. "Gentlemen, let's finish discussing the Riverside project." One executive blinked. "Sir, shouldn't we postpone?" Nathaniel shook his head. "If my marriage is ending, that doesn't mean 600 employees. Stop depending on me," the meeting continued. Not one person could focus. Everyone kept stealing glances toward the envelope resting beside Nathaniel's notebook. Only Denise Harper understood. She had worked beside him for 20 years. Whenever Nathaniel became quieter, someone else should start worrying. That evening, Samuel Richardson spread dozens of folders across his office conference table. Nathaniel sat opposite him. Marcus Hill leaned against the wall with folded arms. Samuel removed his glasses. "Well, it's official." Nathaniel nodded. She filed. Samuel slid the petition across the table. "I've read every page." "And," Samuel sighed, "Vanessa isn't asking for fairness. She's asking for control." Nathaniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Samuel pointed to several highlighted sections. "She wants half of Brooks Holdings. The lake house, the penthouse, the vacation properties, your investment portfolio, the aircraft, the classic car collection, future company profits." Nathaniel slowly leaned back. "Future profits?" Samuel nodded. "She believes she helped build the company." Nathaniel laughed softly. "Not because it was funny, because it hurt. She joined my life when the company was already worth nearly $200 million. Samuel nodded again. "I know," Marcus added quietly. "She thinks the public image of being your wife will work in her favor." Nathaniel looked toward the window. "I never imagined she'd become my opponent." Samuel's expression hardened. "You aren't her opponent. You are her target." Across town, Vanessa celebrated. Champagne flowed inside the upscale rooftop lounge where she met. 3 close friends. Crystal glasses clinked. Music played softly. One friend smiled. "So, how much are you walking away with?" Vanessa grinned. "My attorney estimates somewhere around $200 million. Another nearly choked on her drink. "You're serious?" Vanessa shrugged confidently. "I'm being conservative." The women burst into excited laughter. "What about Nathaniel?" Vanessa took another sip. "He'll survive. He always lands on his feet." One woman hesitated. "Do you actually hate him?" Vanessa paused longer than expected. "No. I just refuse to spend my life married to someone who puts work before everything else," another friend asked. "So the other guy?" Vanessa smiled. "We'll see." She didn't realize someone at the next table quietly stood, paid his bill, and left. Marcus Hill had heard everything. The first mediation session attracted attention throughout Atlanta's business community. No cameras were allowed inside, but rumors spread quickly. Half the city expected a brutal fight. The other half expected Nathaniel to settle quietly. Neither side knew him very well. Vanessa entered first, confident, elegant. Her legal team carried 3 rolling cases filled with financial documents. Nathaniel arrived alone. No dramatic entrance, no visible emotion. He greeted the receptionist by name, asked about her son, complimented the security guard's new glasses. Vanessa watched him. Why wasn't he nervous? The mediator welcomed everyone inside. Formal introductions ended quickly. Vanessa's attorney stood. "My client sacrificed years supporting Mr. Brooks while his wealth multiplied." Nathaniel remained silent. The attorney continued confidently. "We expect complete financial disclosure before negotiations proceed." Samuel smiled politely. "Of course." He slid several binders across the table. Vanessa looked pleased. This was exactly what she'd been waiting for. Hours passed reviewing documents. Properties, investments, corporate ownership, trusts, holding companies. Everything appeared orderly. Then Vanessa frowned. She whispered something to her attorney. He flipped through the pages again. His confident smile disappeared. He looked toward Samuel. "There must be another volume." Samuel shook his head. "No." The attorney frowned. "Where are the remaining assets?" Samuel looked genuinely confused. "Those are the marital assets." Silence. Vanessa leaned forward. "What about Brooks' Legacy Trust?" Samuel calmly replied. "It isn't marital property." She blinked. "What?" "The trust predates your marriage." Vanessa stared. "What trust?" Nathaniel finally spoke. "My grandmother established it years before we met." Vanessa's attorney interrupted. "We've never seen documents regarding this trust." Samuel slid another folder forward. "That's because ownership transferred long before divorce proceedings began." Vanessa's confidence cracked slightly. She looked toward Nathaniel. "You never told me." Nathaniel answered quietly. "You never asked." Outside the conference room, Vanessa cornered her attorney. "I thought you said we'd found everything." "We did." "No." She pointed toward the door. "We obviously didn't." The attorney rubbed his forehead. "The trust owns considerably more than expected." "How much?" He hesitated. "I don't know yet." Her heartbeat quickened. "Find out." Over the following weeks, forensic accountants from both sides battled over thousands of documents. Every day uncovered another surprise. Luxury apartment developments Owned by the trust. Commercial office towers. Trust. Private equity investments. Trust. The vineyard in California. Trust. The ranch in Texas. Trust. The aviation company. Trust. Even Brooks Holdings itself wasn't fully owned by Nathaniel personally. Most voting shares belonged to the Brooks Family Legacy Trust, established years before the marriage, with strict legal protections that had been maintained long before any divorce was contemplated. Everything had been documented, audited, legal, transparent. Vanessa became increasingly frustrated. This can't be happening. Her attorney answered carefully. It is. One evening, Vanessa confronted Nathaniel inside the empty family home. You planned this. Nathaniel looked up from his coffee. No, you hid everything. I protected my family's legacy. She laughed bitterly. Convenient. He looked directly into her eyes. Do you remember asking why my grandmother insisted on meeting with our lawyers before the wedding? Vanessa's expression changed. She remembered. She had skipped the meeting, claimed she had a design conference. Nathaniel continued. She explained exactly how the family trust worked. I wasn't there. I noticed silence filled the room. Nathaniel spoke gently. You never cared. You assumed everything belonged to me personally. Vanessa's voice sharpened. Because it did. No, it never did. That night, Vanessa visited the one person she hadn't spoken to in months. Her mother. Angela Carter opened the door slowly. She immediately recognized the exhaustion on her daughter's face. You look miserable. Vanessa walked inside. I made a mistake. Angela sighed. Which one? The divorce. Angela stared. I warned you. Vanessa looked away. You said Nathaniel loved me? I did. You said I'd regret hurting him. I did. Vanessa collapsed onto the sofa. I thought he was hiding money. Angela's expression softened. No, he was hiding disappointment. Vanessa finally cried. Real tears. Not strategic tears. Not manipulative tears. The kind that arrive when denial finally dies. Meanwhile, Nathaniel found himself unable to celebrate. Everyone expected satisfaction. Instead, he grieved. Samuel noticed. You still miss her. Nathaniel answered honestly. I miss believing she loved me. Samuel nodded. Those aren't the same thing. Nathaniel smiled sadly. I know. Weeks later, Marcus requested another meeting. I have something. Nathaniel looked surprised. I thought the investigation was over. It almost is. Marcus placed one final folder on the desk. I looked into the man your wife was seeing. Nathaniel remained silent. His name's Eric Lawson. Nathaniel opened the file. Investment consultant. 41, recently bankrupt. Multiple lawsuits. Significant gambling debts. Nathaniel frowned. Marcus continued. He knew exactly who Vanessa was before meeting her. Nathaniel looked up. What are you saying? Marcus answered quietly. I don't think he fell in love. I think he found an opportunity. Nathaniel debated telling Vanessa. Part of him wanted to walk away. Another part remembered the woman he'd once promised to protect, even if she had broken every promise herself. He finally called her. We need to talk. She almost refused. Then curiosity won. They met inside the small coffee shop where they'd had their first date. Neither ordered anything. Nathaniel slid Marcus's file across the table. What is this? Read it. Vanessa frowned as she turned page after page. Her face slowly lost all color. No. Nathaniel said nothing. She continued reading. Bank records, messages, recorded conversations. One highlighted sentence stopped her breathing. Once the divorce is finalized, she'll have enough money for both of us. Another message followed. After that, I'll move on. Vanessa looked up. This isn't real. It is. She shook her head violently. No, he loves me. Nathaniel gently answered. I used to believe someone loved me too. The words shattered her. 2 days later, Vanessa confronted Eric. He didn't even deny it. You really believed I'd spend forever playing house? She stared at him. You used me. Eric shrugged. You used your husband. Silence. He laughed. Guess we're all getting what we deserve. Vanessa slapped him. He simply smiled. She walked away realizing she'd destroyed the only person who had ever loved her without conditions. The final divorce hearing arrived 3 months later. Unlike the first meeting, Vanessa wore no designer confidence, no victorious smile. She looked exhausted. Nathaniel looked peaceful. The judge reviewed the settlement. The marital estate would be divided according to law. Vanessa would receive a generous amount, millions. In fact, from the assets legitimately considered marital property. More money than most people would earn in several lifetimes. But it wasn't the fortune she'd imagined. the vast Brooks family. Legacy trust remained untouched because it had never been marital property and had been properly established and maintained. The judge signed the final order. It is done. Just like that. 14 years of marriage ended with the stroke of a pen. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Microphones stretched forward. Mr. Brooks, did you hide your fortune? Nathaniel stopped, looked directly at the cameras. I hid nothing. I simply honored my family's plans long before my marriage failed. Another reporter shouted, do you hate your ex-wife? Nathaniel paused, then quietly answered, no. Hate keeps you connected to the people who hurt you. I choose peace instead. He walked away. Those words appeared on every evening news broadcast. Months passed. Nathaniel sold the mansion. Not because he had to, because too many memories lived inside it. He expanded his scholarship foundation, built affordable housing in neighborhoods investors ignored, spent more weekends visiting his grandmother. Life became quieter, healthier. One afternoon, Evelyn smiled while watching children play in a new community park. Nathaniel had funded. You finally understand. Nathaniel looked toward her. Understand what? She squeezed his hand. The greatest wealth was never what you almost lost. It was the character no one could take from you. Nathaniel smiled. She was right. Money had built buildings. Integrity had rebuilt a life. As for Vanessa, she eventually rebuilt hers too. Not through another wealthy relationship. Not through lawsuits. Not through shortcuts. She reopened her interior design business from a much smaller office. For the first time, every client she earned came through her own work. Years later, she quietly mailed Nathaniel a handwritten letter, not asking for another chance, not asking for forgiveness, only saying 2 words, thank you. He never replied. He didn't need to. Some endings don't require another conversation, only acceptance, because trust, once broken, may never return. But wisdom often arrives through the pieces, and sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning a fortune. It's walking away with your dignity, your peace, and the knowledge that no betrayal, no matter how painful, can bankrupt a heart that refuses to become bitter.